Hello everyone, welcome back to K's Models. My name is Greg and today we're going to be doing something a little different. Today we're going to be doing a project overview video. So I'm here with Adam of SwindellSteamWorks and we're going to be going over various Hudsons that we've been working on over the past year or so. So in this video we'll be going over each project, what we did, and then you'll see them running around the layout. So stick around. So the first engine we're going to start off with is a Protosound 3 upgrade that I did on this MTH Protosound 1 era Empire State Express. This was a fairly straightforward swap because the Protosound 3 upgrade kits are pretty much made for this sort of thing, so I didn't run into too many issues or have to do anything wildly custom or anything like that. So pretty much just went ahead, left the constant voltage board in as well in order to keep all the wheel lights. I think I was also able to preserve the Protosound 1 smoke unit, just had to cut some traces to make it work right as per the manual. And then other than that, I mean, this is a fantastic way to get one of these engines for a pretty good price, and then also get like the modern electronics in them, because you could go out and buy the new ones, but those run what, like 1300, something like that. So, but you can find these for way cheaper, get a $200 upgrade kit, and then you'd have pretty much a modern engine. This is a pretty beefy engine, it's got a good amount of weight to it. The electronics make it run really nicely, and I'm really happy with the way this one turned out. I'll have it running around with the Lionel 21-inch cars later on. Next up, this is a Lionel Legacy J3A Hudson. This is the Mr. Muffin's custom run from the last run of J3As. I forget what year that was. I think it was like 2018. The change that I made to this one was I swapped out the headlight. Lionel unfortunately put the wrong headlights on these. They put like this big like sunbeam headlight on it. It should be this like Pyle National headlight. So what I did was I got a precision craft casting, drilled it out, milled it out, made a reflector out of some aluminum tape that you use in like ductwork. Then used a hole punch, punched out a lens out of acetate, and then glued that all together. I was able to reuse the original number boards as well, just shaved them a bit to make them fit right, and then filled in the rest with a little bit of styrene. Painted it all black and fitted on the original platform just to make things a little simpler. One other change that I made was the headlight on these, the bulb that they used. They used this kind of like whitish, very cool white LED, and if you've been watching my reviews of other models from any other manufacturer, you know that's one of my biggest pet peeves. So I replaced it with a grain of wheat incandescent bulb. I will probably go back and replace this with a golden white LED just to get a little bit more brightness out of it. I also have a Pat's Trains Hudson from the same run that was an exclusive there, and that will get the same treatment soon regarding the headlight. As for another quick thing to go over on these is this tooling's been around for quite a while, and later on you'll see Adam's TMCC era one, and one thing we did was kind of look at the detail differences between them, and Adam will elaborate on other things that we found regarding that.
So just doing a quick comparison, overall we noticed how in terms of the bare bone detail there is almost virtually no difference. All the piping is the same, much of the castings themselves are the same. There are some differences in some of the paint, like on Greg's 5415 the smoke box graphite is about 2 or 3 shades lighter than on my 5444. The paint treatment on stuff like the valves on the side of right beside the bell, some of them are still black on 5415, while on my 5444 they're painted red. But ironically, the cab interior on Greg's 5415, all the gauges and valves are painted, but on my engine they're not painted, so it was like a sort of a funny trade-off. Not going to go over the drivers because the drivers, that's actually going to be something else I'm going to talk about whenever I cover more on my Hudson. But overall, this tooling has gone virtually unchanged. There might be a few modifications to allow some of the newer boards or technology to fit, One big difference, of course, is how the 5415 does not have the incorrect classification lights. As my 5444, it does have them. Now, I actually like the class lights. It kind of it gives it a kind of a unique appearance, albeit I know that they're not accurate. But yeah, just doing a quick comparison, we found that much of the tooling has gone unchanged. So that's pretty cool to see how there really was no change to this model. It was already that good.
Another thing regarding the class lights, the two custom runs that were done for these, which is the Muffin and the Mr. Muffin's trains and the Pat's trains ones, though they pulled the class lights for those runs specifically, and I've noted that in my review of this engine that I did when I got it, which was I think about 4 or 5 years ago now. The regular cataloged runs of these did have the class lights, so mine are a bit more of an exception than the rule. I believe Norm from Norm's Trains, he got one of these, one of the actual cataloged ones, and he removed and blanked over where the class lights go on these, and he did a really cool job on that. I think there's an OGR thread about that, as if you want to learn more about doing a similar project. That was also where I got most of the inspiration to do this headlight job. Alright, now moving on to the third and final Hudson. That was my work. This is a third rail de-streamlined Super Hudson number 5453. So this is one of the, in real life, this was one of the former Dreyfuss Hudsons that later on, when they didn't want to do it anymore, they pulled the streamlining off, make it ease of maintenance. But when they did that, they made a couple of interesting changes. Like, you'll notice the front door of the smoke box is very different from the others. It's not circular anymore. It looks much more like what was on the L4 Mohawks and the Niagaras, and this was nicknamed the Selkirk front end due to it usually happening in the Selkirk shops in New York. Now, as for the model itself, this one had the most amount of work out of the ones that I did, and I'm going over here. I bought this from an online retailer, and unfortunately it was not packaged properly. It had no packaging or protection on the front and rear end of this thing, and as a result, this thing was slammed. I think I have a picture of it somewhere. When I took it out of the box, the smoke box door was off it. Everything on the smoke box door, the headlight nameplate, was all ripped off. The pilot had been pushed in, and the piece of brass, so this was like solid stock brass that holds the pilot to the main frame, and it was bent. I had to ease that back straight, and that must have taken some force but thankfully it being there actually saved the frame, and the engine itself was okay. There weren't any huge dents or anything in it. It was salvageable, and I was able to get it cosmetically looking good pretty much to this stage. And then as I was doing all that, got it back together, it had the original Train America Studios EOB TMCC system in it, and I got it working all right, and then it started stuttering, started not running. It would listen to commands, and it just wouldn't move. Like, it would play the whistle, everything correctly, but when I tried to move it, it would just sit there, and then it would blow the whistle like some sort of error code. And I was able to figure out, with the help of some friends, that it was the tachometer that was giving me issues, and this is a common point of failure with these systems. So I tried fiddling with it, got it working sometimes, and would fall out of place, wouldn't work again, and then ultimately I just looked at it and I realized this is an ancient system. It doesn't sound that great anymore. It's outdated. It's time for a new system. So I ripped all the Train America Studio stuff out and went with ERR for now. Now, this does help it. It runs a lot smoother now, responds a lot better. The only problem is ERR only has a couple of Steam sound files, and out of the ones that they had, the one that I thought would sound the best with it was the medium Steam file, but unfortunately that has a Pennsylvania whistle in it, and I feel like if Rodney Gantorski found out about this, I would probably have my door broken down. So maybe in the future I'll upgrade this to Proto Sound 3 and then use the electronics that I put in here for another project. But for right now, I'm okay with it. It's got 4 chuffs, it's running, and it looks good. And after what this thing went through, I'm just really happy with the way that it turned out. That's what matters. I had been looking for one of these for a long time, especially 5453, because that has if you have the other numbers that ends in 7, they actually put the wrong font on it. So all the numbers are right, and then the number 7 itself is in Times New Roman. I don't know why they did that, but it's just an interesting quirk of these.
Shenanigans.
Quite. But I consider this to be one of Third Rail's best models. I love the detail of it. I love the way it looks, even just sitting there. And I'm just glad to finally have one running and looking good on my layout.
What you said, this is one of Third Rail's best models. That honor is bestowed upon the Southern Pacific 210-2. Get it right!
No. You're in my house. You're in my house.
Oh, right, I forgot. Alright, now moving on to two of my Hudsons. So the first one is my Lionel 2000-2001 era New York Central J3A number 5444, also known as one of Lionel's controversial Hudsons. Greg definitely knows what I mean by that.
Yeah.
So the reason why this is one of Lionel's controversial Hudsons is actually, it's mainly to do with the fact that how this engine was pictured in the catalog differs to what the final product actually became. So in the original catalog, the image showed this locomotive 5444, but it showed it with box park drivers, much like Greg's 5415, and it showed it without the class lights. But of course, when this engine came out, much to everyone's surprise, the class lights were added, and the skull and disc drivers were also added. However, like I said before, I actually like the look of the skull and disc drivers, and I like the look of the class lights, even though it's really not correct. The biggest change I made to this model is I painted the disc drivers. It's not, you probably can't really see in this shot, but maybe in some of the running shots you'll get a better idea. Or if you want to, just looking at this, if you were to look up photos of Lionel J3A number 5444 and compare how the drivers look in those photos versus this, you'll see that they have been painted. To me, I don't understand why Lionel skimped out on painting the drivers. This is a gorgeous model, and by not painting the drivers, it's such an eyesore, because you have a beautifully painted boiler, and then you look at these drivers and it's just the raw die-cast. You know, it doesn't even have any clear coat, it's just the raw die-cast. But luckily, it was really easy to paint these, because this engine was made during a time when Lionel was securing the drivers using screws affixed to keyed axles. So all I had to do was just take all the screws out to remove all the rods, and then just remove the screws to pull the drivers, and then I cleaned the drivers using warm water and soap to get rid of any surface contamination. And I taped off the treads, flanges, and the backs of the drivers, and then I sprayed each driver with, I think at the time I used Tamiya TS6, which was a matte black. I did three generous coats, allowing each coat to dry before I proceeded to the next coat. And then for clear coat, I used Tamiya TS79 semi-gloss clear. And of course, same thing, I let each coat dry before proceeding to the next coat, and it gave me results that look like they match the engine very well. Now, of course, this model is still it's still a bit of a work in progress, because it still has 2 chuffs per revolution. It does not have a smoke unit anymore. Unfortunately, this model is also one that Lionel, for some reason, decided to use the mechanical puffer smoke unit. Eventually, I will fit a fan-driven smoke unit, probably one of the SSMU smoke units, and then I also want to put in a John Will & Associates Super Chuffer 2 and a chuff generator, so that it gives me better light functions, better smoke output, and ultimately 4 chuffs per revolution. But currently, this model is still, even though it's still a work in progress, it's also at a complete state where I can still run this engine and enjoy it for what it is. Alright, and here is Hudson 2 of 2. This engine may seem familiar for some of you guys that have been in this hobby. Some of you, it may not seem so familiar. And the whole concept of what I'm going to be talking about is not something new. This is kind of a common trend with these engines. But anyways, this is a classic. This is a K-line New York Central J1E Hudson, probably what has been regarded as being the best detailed J1E on the market, even surpassing the MTH ones. So I got this Hudson from my bro Thomas Carey, and he, at one time, he wanted to have a model of 5344 in most of the major scales. He has one in HO. He had this one, and then he had a USA Trains version. But finally he realized, he's like, why do I have the O scale and the G scale version when I'm not going to run them? So he sold off the USA Trains G scale version, and then when it came down to this Hudson, at this point I was back in 3-rail, and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to make a go for it. He did tell me that the engine runs. Now, being that he is primarily an HO guy, he, working with 3-rail trains has, it has its quirks. As I came to learn, returning to 3-rail. But little did I know that there was actually a problem with this engine. So when I got the engine, it was in great shape. It was just incredibly dusty. So I had to strip this thing down in order to really get all the dust out and just clean it up and re-lube it. And when I went to program and run the engine, what I found was this engine had very little to absolutely no low-speed control. At the time, I thought it was the motor, but then after talking with some people, some people told me that it sounds like the DCDR motor driver board is failing, and turns out that's what it was. Because I took the motor out and I started doing some testing with it, checking the resistance or power values, and it was running just fine. A friend of mine had given me a K-line Cruise Command upgrade kit, which was designed for the Mikados and these Hudsons. I went through the whole process of installing it, and unfortunately it did not yield the results that I was after. I did get better low-speed control, but no, it was, for some reason, it wasn't taking programming. Like, I tried to adjust the motor, like program the motor size or program the speed steps. It was not taking programming commands, even after all the resets that I tried doing. So I was really annoyed that I just did all that work, and basically all the work, none of the reward. So at that point I decided, you know what, I'm done playing around with this TMCC in this engine. I'm going to put PS3 in this engine, and so that's what I did. I purchased an MCH PS3 upgrade kit, and the good thing with the upgrade kits, regardless if it's for a diesel or for a steam, it comes with absolutely everything you need. It comes with the tack tape, the holders for the tack readers, all the lights you could need, new electro couplers, the board, the harnesses, everything. So I went through the whole process of putting PS3 in this model, and this actually happens to be the first model in my collection to get PS3, and it was done by yours truly. In order to retain the front marker lights as well as the cab light, I had to use I think it was an Engineering N2598 or N2596 adjustable constant voltage board. Some people would have probably suggested I use an MTH constant voltage board out of something else. Well, remember, this is not an MTH model. This is a K-line, so it probably didn't have a constant voltage board to begin with. But the Engineering constant voltage board serves me just fine, and I like having some kind of light on the model firing up before the rest of the model fires up, because then that is actually a good indication as to whether or not you have track power. Some cosmetic things I've done to the model is I've painted the rims on the drivers, and I also painted the axle centers black. On both 5444 and 5344, I still have to go and I need to paint the pilot wheels. I'm actually shocked I haven't done that yet. I'm sure Greg is going to probably smack me in the back of the head for not doing that.
Yeah.
I beg your pardon. No, but I do need to do that at some point. But But probably the biggest thing about this model, besides the PS3 upgrade, is I successfully managed to install an MTH fan-driven smoke unit. So this engine has smoke. When I first did the PS3 install, I was still trying to figure out how am I going to mount an MTH smoke unit. And, you know, I didn't know how, but then after doing another PS3 install on another K-line locomotive, I figured out how to do it on that model. So then I went back and I successfully did the same to this model. So as you guys will see during the run session, this engine has this engine has smoke, and it sounds absolutely amazing. And even to this day, it's still kind of a what I call a mind baffle. You know, this is a K-line engine, and you know you see this and you are expecting to hear some kind of like Lionel rail sounds. No, you're going to hear MTH proto sounds. So it's a mind baffle. So now we're going to move on to one last thing. Alright, so the last project from my end is actually a set of 4 passenger cars. These are made by Lionel. I think these were made in the early 2000s or maybe the mid 2000s. Because these cars are basically the equivalent to some of the more modern heavyweights that are offered by Lionel. Now, one thing I will note is I don't have the diaphragms on because I really was not in the mood to try and wrestle those diaphragms in. But with these cars, I also got these cars from my bro Thomas Carey, same person who sold me 5344. And these cars were in beautiful condition. The only thing I had to do to these cars is I had to repaint the roof sections, because on all 4 of the cars, you know, some of them were had a few other places, like I think this one had a spot right here and a spot right here, but mostly on the ends, like where the arches are, there was paint rub out from where the car was rubbing up against the foam. And so I thought about replacing the roof sections, but then I realized how much of these cars is made, it's all one section. So I realized, no, I'm just going to have to just tape it off and paint it, which it was a time-consuming process, but it was well worth it, because I think they look a lot better than the original factory job, and I'm just glad that they look better. For the paint, I used this time I used Tamiya TS29, which was semi-gloss black, and then for the clear coat, it was the same semi-gloss clear TS79. Depending on how much coverage I was getting at any given time, I was either doing 2 to 3 coats, letting each coat dry before proceeding to the next, and then once I got the paint on, I let that sit for about half an hour to a full hour to let it really adhere to the plastic, and then follow that up with the TS79 clear coat, doing 3 light coats, but making sure I got decent coverage, because you know, you don't want to go too heavy, and then it starts to soften the detail, or if you're not careful, you could start to get runs, and then once you got runs, yeah, you're in a dire situation. But yeah, that's really all there was to these cars, was just repainting the roof sections. But considering that these cars are meant to go with my 5344, I figured I would include them in the video. up again. Lucky time to go.
Your Central 5444 takes the green.
All right, so that about wraps it up for this project update. Went over a lot of Hudsons today, and hopefully you'll be seeing more videos from me in the future along these lines. I have a lot of projects in the pipeline that I'm hoping to finish sooner or later. So if you like it, make sure to hit the like button. Be sure to subscribe to see more videos from me in the future. Hope to see you in the next one.
Your Central 5444 takes the green.
Ah! All right.
That's a blooper.